Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we're going to be looking at Olive's February's Build Your Own Bundle options. So I have almost all of the options this month, and as a reminder, I am an affiliate with Olive, so I will have my link and code in the description box, but for now, let's just get into the swatches. The first shade we have is Emerald, and this one is described as an olive holographic cream. So this actually came out in the fall collection last year, and it did cause quite a stir in the comments because of the shade name not matching the name of the polish. But aside from that, this is still a really beautiful olive green. But my main gripe with this shade is just that it's described as a holographic, but you don't really get that strong holographic payoff. Obviously, it's not really going to show up under my desk lighting, but even in the sun, it would be a very, very subtle effect. So if you are looking for a very holographic, rainbow-filled polish, I would maybe skip this one, but I do think it's gorgeous otherwise. Next up, we have Sprout, which is described as a pastel yellow-green cream. So this one came out in last year's spring collection, and I really love this one. I think it is such a cute, but still very bright and refreshing yellow green, and normally I am very picky when it comes to yellow leaning greens. More often than not, they're a little too yellow for me, but this one just had the perfect amount where I think it's just so flattering. So the formula on this one is very smooth to apply, as are most Olive creams. I really love the brushes because they just hug my cuticles so perfectly. I might still need cleanup here and there, but for the most part, it's always just such flawless application, and it's just so satisfying with a gorgeous color. Next up, we have Sage, and this one is described as a soft muted sage with a silver shimmer. So this one came out a couple years in a spring collection, and I honestly didn't give it enough love, I think because I really just enjoyed the creams that came out from that collection. But looking at it now, I think it is just so pretty. I really love this shade of green. I feel like there's almost like a sea foam or a jade kind of quality to it, and obviously it is very sheer on the first coat. I personally found it opaque enough for me on 2 coats, but I guess if your nails were longer, you probably would need a third. But again, the formula is just so smooth to apply, and I found that it self-levels really nicely. So this is just such a beautiful green for this time of year, and I'm definitely going to be using it more, especially next month. Next up, we have Lemon Blossom, and this actually came out in Walker's very first collection for Olive polish. So this one is described as just the pastel yellow of your dreams. It's right in between a white and a yellow, so it definitely is leaning very white here, but even though it has such a whitened base, it's not chalky. It's still very smooth to apply and still self-levels really nicely. So I personally found this one opaque enough for me in 2 coats. I think there are some little bald spots here or there near my cuticle area, but it was so minimal, I didn't think it was necessary to do a third. So yeah, this is a classic spring shade. So we actually have another yellow. This one is called Sunshine, and this was from last year's spring collection. And this is just described as a sunny pastel yellow. So I will be comparing the 2 yellows in a bit, but this one is probably my favorite because it just has such an amazing formula for a yellow. I mean, look at how even coverage this is on the first coat. It is insane. There's definitely a lot more of brightness to this shade, and I just think it's so perfect and cheery. I mean, I think you know I really love these kind of happy shades, so I can't recommend this one enough, especially if you don't have a pastel yellow. This is so perfect. So here's a side-by-side of Lemon Blossom and Sunshine. They both definitely look very similar in the bottle since they're both pastel yellows, but on the nail you can see just how much brighter Sunshine is. Lemon Blossom still is pretty, but yeah, I'd love to know which one you like more. Next up we have Limestone, and this one is described as a mid-toned khaki cream. So this is actually the third time that I am swatching Limestone, and the very first time I was not a fan at all of the shade, but I feel like each time that I swatch it, I find it a little bit more flattering than the last. But formula-wise, this one is just a really great creamy formula. Totally opaque for me in 2 coats. It's really just the color that leans a little bit too yellow for me. That kind of reminds me of foundation, so I don't love this shade, but it's not bad. The next shade we have is Crystal, and this is described as a warm peachy sheer. So this was actually part of last month's bundle option, so if you didn't add Crystal there, you could add it this time. But yeah, this is another one that I am reviewing for a third time, and I, similar to Limestone, am still on the fence about how I feel about this one. The very first time I swatched it, I didn't love it because my nails were very stained, kind of like they are now, and I find that the warm peachy tone just doesn't really complement that. I do think it is a pretty shade, and it does build up really nicely in 2 coats. It looks like that kind of mannequin hands sort of manicure. It's very fresh and clean, but I personally like it when my nails are not stained. The next shade we have is Opal, and this one is described as an opalescent shimmer topper in a clear base, which I always thought was kind of interesting because it kind of has a pinkish tint. But as you can see when I'm applying it over my bare nail, the pink tint does not really do much to cover that up. So you definitely can use this as a topper, but I did want to show this on its own in 2 coats because I really love the shimmer in this. It's like mainly blue, but has these flecks of pink, just obviously very opalescent and so pretty. Next up we have Cloudy, which is one of my absolute favorite Olive Ave shades. This one is described as the palest sky blue, so light that it verges on white. And this one was also available last month, so if you didn't grab it then, now is your chance. But I think this one is so pretty. I mean, assuming you aren't annoyed by the type of shades that are so light they're almost white, I think this is such a perfect shade to grab. You definitely see that blue tint on the second coat, and obviously compared next to a stark white polish, you'll notice the difference. But this one is just so refreshing and light and just so crisp for the season. The next polish is Aster, and this is also from Olive Ave's very first spring collection. And this one is described as the perfect minty blue. So I'm not really sure where the line is between mint and teal, especially a minty blue, because I know minty greens also exist. But either way, this one is absolutely stunning. As you saw, the formula is super opaque on the first coat, very creamy, so smooth to apply, perfectly opaque in 2 coats, and that color is just so beautiful. I feel like it kind of reminds me of a robin's egg shade, but maybe not as teal. So either way, I think this is such a perfect shade for the springtime, and you know I love a good teal, and this could easily work for the summer too. And lastly, we have Cornflower, which was also from Olive Ave's very first collection, and probably to no one's surprise, this was the most popular shade. So Cornflower is described as a soft and dreamy periwinkle. Normally, I think of periwinkles to be a little bit more on the purple side than this shade, but this is still an absolutely beautiful cornflower blue. It had a really great formula on the first coat where it was really even coverage, basically almost fully opaque, but I did do a second coat just to really deepen the color a little bit, and this shade just makes me so happy. So I had to redo my outro because there was a bit of a mix-up or a miscommunication on when these bundle options are available until. They're actually only available until this Sunday, February 19th. So I'm really sorry that this is like a last minute kind of video. I originally thought that you would have maybe a week to decide if you wanted to get anything, but I still wanted to just show all the February options with the exception of Calla Lily. I know some of these shades are very similar to each other, like Lemon Blossom, Sunshine, and Sprout, but once you see them next to each other, you can definitely tell them apart. So it's one of those things of just whatever your preference is, but maybe you wouldn't need all three of these. So again, for the bundle option deals, when you pick 4 or 5 shades, you can save 15% off. So if I were to pick 4 polishes to recommend, I definitely would go with Sunshine, the Pastel Sunshine Cream. It's just so bright and cheery with such a beautiful formula. And then I would also add in Sprout because even though it is kind of similar to Sunshine, it definitely looks green. I think it's just picking up a little bit more yellow on camera, and it's just so cute for that new growth spring vibe. The third shade that I would add in to the bundle is Sage because, again, this sage green is just so soothing and that shimmer is so pretty. And lastly, I would add in Aster because I think it's just so bright and such a great color to carry you from spring to summer. So if you did want to add an additional polish and still get the 15% off, I would go in and add a Cornflower because I'm just a sucker for periwinkle and I think this one is so beautiful. It's also just a nice bright pop of color compared to these kind of yellowy green shades that we're going with here. And lastly, if you wanted to add in a 6th polish to get the 20% off, I would actually go in with Opal, which is the opalescent topper. I think it's really pretty on its own, especially over a sheer base, or of course, it's very versatile to use over any of these creams. But I'm definitely so curious to know what you think of this month's options, especially if you are going to be getting anything. Again, I am really sorry that this video is coming out basically on the last weekend. I was just under the impression that there was going to be more time for the sale. So hopefully next month, fingers crossed, we will get on a better schedule with that. But I'm sure whatever you pick up, you won't be disappointed because Olive is just an amazing brand with amazing colors and formulas. So anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.